Hello to you all. I'm actually feeling very much like an online yoga teacher now. I'd like to introduce you to Martha, my new plant of indoors. I've been wanting a plant for my indoors for a very long time and now I have one. So welcome to Martha to the online pure yoga practice. So today we're going to be doing a wrist-free yoga practice and we're going to do some box breathing, which is a count in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. We'll start off with that practice first and then after we've done 2 rounds of in for 4 and that 4 block, we're going to do in for 5, hold for 4 at the top, out for 5, hold for 4 at the bottom. So it's called box breathing. It's good for calming the mind, calming the nervous system. It's really good if you want to energize the body. You can take a longer inhale than you do exhale. If you want to restore the body, you take a longer exhale than you do inhale. So you can really play around with that box, making that box a little bit more uneven on both sides. So we're going to start in a kneeling position. Now before I start, just a quick pointer, because it's going to be a hands-free, I'm just going to show you about the transition that we make into our standing. So we'll come to a point where we come onto our toes and onto our knees. So the choice, if you want to come up slowly, is to bring your hands down and then find your balancing point. If you want to try and find your balancing point, you swing the arms and try and bring yourself onto those toes. From this point, you can either bring the hands down again and slowly straighten the legs, bring the heels down, curl up through the spine to standing and then come up onto the toes. Or you can bring it into the more stronger version where you still keep that balance and you push into the toes to come up to standing, keeping the heels lifted. So they're your 2 options when we come to standing. We'll be doing lots of forearm planks rather than 4 planks. Forearm planks do demand a little bit more of the body because your body is in one parallel line, rather than when you're in a full plank and the shoulders are slightly higher than the hips. That does take the pressure off the strength of the shoulders. So you may find the core centre gets a little tired. If it does, just bring the knees down. Modify it to however you feel you need to do so. I'll give you those modifications throughout. So we're going to start in that seated position. Bring the hands onto the knees. Take a roll of the shoulders up towards the ears. Bring them back down towards the hips and take a close of the eyes. Stay tall through the spine, relax through the shoulders, just with a slight tuck of the chin towards the chest. Take a mental scan of the body from the top of the head down to the fingertips, down to the toe tips. Checking in with how that body feels. Going all the way through that body, checking in with the shoulders, checking in with the back, checking in with the hips. Checking in with the upper limbs and the lower limbs, the joints of the elbows and the knees, the joints of the wrists and the ankles. And maybe those extremities of the fingers and the toes. Sometimes those parts are places where you get some irritation, some tightness, some tension. And we're just going to work strength and flex into the practice throughout today. When you've taken that mental scan of the body, just bring your attention to your own natural automatic breath. Just check in with how that's sitting for you today. If you're slightly anxious, if you've been busy, maybe that breath's high up in the chest. Maybe if you're already feeling quite calm and relaxed, maybe the breath is going deeper into the belly. Or maybe you're just somewhere in between and it's high or low into the low rib cage. Wherever that breath is at the moment, just watch it, just be mindful of it. With the eyes closed, takes you a little bit more internally. So we're going to start with our box breathing. So take a long deep breath in first through the nose. And a long sigh out through the mouth. Take another deep breath in through the nose. And this time breathe out through the nose, using that nose as much as you can through practice. Next breath in for 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, out for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4. Take a nice long deep breath in and a long breath out. Open the eyes. Your next breath in, roll the shoulders up to the ears. On your breath out, release them back towards the hips. Next breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling, palms come together at the top. Breath out, bring your left hand down, reach over with your right hand to the left side of the room. Breath in, bring the hands back up to the ceiling. Breath out, bring your right hand down and reach over with your left hand to the right side of the room. Breath in, back to centre. Breath out, bring your left hand to the right knee, your right hand behind and rotate. Breath in, back to the centre. Breath out, bring your right hand to your left knee, your left hand behind, rotate to the left. Breath in, back to centre. Breath out, bring the hands to the knees, push the centre of the spine back towards the back of the room, arching that back. Breath in, lift up through the chest, lift up through the gaze, push the ribs forward, take it into extension. Breath out, come back to that central place. Take it through it again. Breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling. Breath out, bring your left hand down, reach over with the right. Breath in, comes back to the ceiling, hands together. Breath out, right hand comes down, reach over with the left hand to the right. Breath in, hands come back to the ceiling. Breath out, left hand to the right knee, right hand behind, rotate to the right. Breath in, hands come back to the ceiling. Breath out, your right hand comes to the left knee, left hand behind, rotate to the left. Breath in, come back to the centre, hands to the ceiling. Breath out, bring the hands to the knees, send the centre of the spine to the back of the room and flex. Bring the ribs to the front of the room and extend. Come back to that centre space and then make your way down onto your forearms. So bringing the arms to that front of the mat, having the arms like train tracks, widen the fingers. Step both feet back, forearm plank. Nice long line from the crown of the head back to the heels. Squeeze the heels back as much as you can. Hold it here for a few breaths. Push into those forearms, chest cavity into that space between the shoulder blades. Then bring the hands to an interlace. Push into the sides of the forearms as you lift the hips. Walk the feet a little further in. And then maybe paddle the feet as you arrive in dolphin pose for a couple of breaths, moving maybe through those hips. Relaxing through the shoulders, but pushing into that mat with those forearms as much as you can. Pushing that chest back towards the thighs. When you're ready to bring those heels to stillness, encourage them towards the mat. Hold it in this space just for one more breath. Step both feet back into that full forearm plank. Separate the hands, train track the arms. Keep that centre of the body nice and strong, rib and hip tether, belly drawn back. Then release those hips to the floor, untuck the toes. Find Sphinx pose, squeezing the shoulder blades back, pushing that chest forward, pushing the hips into the floor so we don't pinch in that lower back. The gaze is forward, the chin is being drawn back. Hold it in this space just for one more breath. Then tuck under with the toes, engage the thighs, the glutes, lift the hips back to that forearm plank. Bring the hands back together, interlace the fingers, lift the hips, walk the feet a little further forward, either paddle or encourage those heels back for a breath. Then coming down onto the knees with the toes tucked under, bring the hands back to the knees. So choice can keep the hands down and slowly come onto the toes. If you're coming with me, swing the arms and then find that balancing point on the toes, heels lifted, pushing the heels forward. Balancing here for a couple of breaths, shoulders over the hips. So choice to bring the hands to the floor and curl up through that spine to standing. Or if you're coming with me, push into the toes as you raise up to standing, holding that position of the balance. As you come to standing, if you've rolled up through the spine, come back up onto the toes when you've arrived. Then release the heels down, hands to the hips. Bring your weight into your left foot. Bring your right knee up to hip height. Try not to let the hips hike. Keep them both squared and in line. Toes back towards the shins in this space. Then turn the right knee out to the side. Bring the right outside ankle onto the top of the left thigh. Take a bend into that left knee as you sink the hips low. Maybe when you've found the legs, maybe you wish to bring the hands together at the chest. Hold it in this space of balance on a figure four for a couple of breaths. Focal point in front of you, noticing those muscles in that standing left leg, working hard to keep the balance. Keeping that core center strong in the middle, rib and hip tether. The squeeze of the outside of that left bum cheek to hold that pose in balance. Stabilize through that hip. One more breath in this space. And then straighten up through that standing leg. Bring your right knee back through up to hip height. Bring the toes back to the shins. And then sending that right foot back towards the back of the room and bringing those shoulders in line with the hips to find that warrior three stance. Back leg straightens by engaging the upper thigh on that right leg. Left leg stays straight also. We're still balancing on that left foot. Hips are nice and square, so try not to let that right hip lift. Hold it in this space. One more breath. And then slowly bring that right foot back through. Bring it back up to hip height. Hold it there. Keep that focus. Bring your right foot down to meet the left. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body. Take a roll of the shoulders. Bring the arms back up to shoulder height. Come back up onto the toes, pushing those heels forward, drawing the bellies back, squeezing the glutes. Then slowly transition down to the floor. You can forward fold here, bringing your body down to the mat. And then when you forward fold it, just bring the hips down, seat towards the feet, keep pushing those heels forward, holding it in that crouch position with the heels lifted. One more breath here. Then release the knees to the floor slowly. Bring the arms forward, finding your forearm plank. Step both feet back, plank position. Hips in line with the shoulders. Arms in train tracks. Push into those hands. Push into those toes. Stretch through the bases of those feet. All the way into that connective tissue from the big toe all the way up to the crown of the head. Interlace the fingers, push into the forearm, lift up with the hips, push the chest back. Step the feet a little further forward. If you wish to have a paddle of the feet here in this dolphin pose, feel free to do so. And when you're ready to bring those heels into a still position, squeeze the heels back, stretch that back chain of muscles. Strengthen those shoulders by pushing into those forearms, but relax there in that space also. Then stepping both feet back, so finding your forearm plank position, train track the arms, keep that head in line with the shoulders, shoulders in line with the hips, hips in line with the knees, knees in line with the ankles. Then release the hips down, untuck the toes and find your Sphinx pose. Just taking a little back bend, push the hips into the floor, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Hold it in this space. One more breath. Then bring those toes to tuck. Squeeze the glutes, the upper thighs, lift up the hips, back to forearm plank. Bring the hands back together, push into the sides of the forearms as you lift the hips. Start to walk the feet in a little. Bring those heels towards the mat, holding it in that space, just for a breath. Then coming down onto the knees, keeping the toes tucked under, walking the hands back. Remember, you can use the hands to come up onto the toes, or swing those arms, finding that balancing point, heels lifted, toes pushing into the mat. Arms out, shoulder high. Again, you can roll up through the spine to standing, or push into those feet to lift up into a standing position. Keep pushing those heels forward, strengthening through the ankles. Release those heels back down, hands onto the hips. Though this time you put your weight into your right foot and you lift up with your left knee. So the balance is coming into that right leg. Try not to let the right hip push out to the side. Keep that right outside glute switched on in that hip rotator. Turn that left knee out, bring the outside ankle onto the top of the right thigh. Take a bend into the knee. Once you've found that bend in the knee and the external rotation of that left hip, bring the hands back together at the chest and hold it in this space for a couple of breaths. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. Keep a focus, keep that core engagement. Notice the muscles in the ankles moving around to find that balance. Then straighten back up through that standing leg. Bring your left knee back forward, toes back to the shins. Then sending your left foot back, your torso forward, bringing the hips in line, nice and square. Torso parallel to the floor, left leg parallel to the floor. Pushing the heel back, straightening that left leg by engaging the upper thigh. The gaze may be down now towards the floor or just in front of you. And then start to bring that torso back up, shoulders back over the hips. Bring your left knee back through, back up to hip height. Hold it in that space, breathe deeply. Bring your left foot back to meet the right. Take a little paddle of the feet. Then bringing yourself back into that toe position. So bringing the arms up to shoulder height, lifting up with the heels. Again, your choice to maybe just fold forward and then bring the bums to the heels, or slowly keeping those heels lifted as you slowly bring those seats down to the feet. Finding that balancing point in crouch position, pushing those heels forward as much as you can, strengthening the base of the feet, the ankles, creating more ankle mobility as we work through this class. Bring the arms down, drop the knees down, bring the forearms down, train track position. Step both feet back into forearm plank. Hold it in forearm for a couple of breaths, feet hip width apart, elbows shoulder width apart. Then take an interlace of the fingers, push into the forearms, lift up the hips, walk the feet a little further forward, either paddling the feet or encouraging those heels down, holding it in this space for a couple of breaths. Keep pushing that chest back, forearms into the mat. Then stepping both feet back to the back of the mat. Bring the hips low, forearm plank, release the hands, train track arms. And then release those hips to the floor, lift up through the chest, untuck the toes. Then release the chest down to the floor, bring the arms to cactus arms. Breath in, lift up the chin, lift up the chest, lift up the hands, lift up the elbows, maybe lift up the feet. Taking it into a strengthening back bend, strengthening all those muscles down the spine. Those muscles in between the shoulder blades, the muscles in the hamstrings and the glutes. One more breath here. Then release the feet, release the chest, the chin, the hands. Then just lift up the chest, bring the elbows back underneath those shoulders. Taking Sphinx pose for a breath. Then tuck under with the toes. Push into the feet, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the thighs. Find that forearm plank. Arms in train track. Then bring the hands together, interlace the fingers, lift the hips. Walk the feet a little further forward. On your out breath, let the knees come to hover off the mat. On your in breath, lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. 3 more, hover off the mat, out breath. In breath, lift and squeeze the heels back. 2 more. Bring them to a hover, out breath. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. 1 more time, bring them to hover. Keep that engagement in the centre. Lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back. Dropping down onto the knees, keeping the toes tucked under. Walking the hands back towards the knees. Find a way to come up onto the toes. Arms come out shoulder height, heels stay lifted. From this position, start to lift up to standing. All the way up to standing. As you arrive here, hold it in this space, heels lifted, strengthening the ankles. Then bring those heels back to the floor, hands to the hips. Take a bend into your right knee. Put the weight into your left foot, keep the hips level, turn the knee out. Find a place for that right foot, either on the inside of that left thigh or left shin, whatever works for you. Hold it in this space of tree. Bring the hands behind the back, interlace the fingers, push those hands down, squeeze those shoulder blades together, keep lifting the lower belly up, drawing the tailbone down, opening that right knee out, get external rotation of the hips, but all the time keeping the chest and the hips facing that short edge of the mat. Holding in this space. Maybe you want to challenge the balance by closing the eyes. Maybe you want to keep them open and find the focal point. If you close the eyes, taking away the sensation of sight, causes you maybe to wobble a little. Maybe you want to close the eyes gently, then open them. Just playing with that balance, that focus. 1 more breath in this space. Bring the hands back to the hips. Bring your right knee back forward up to hip height. Then squeeze that right knee in towards the rib cage, lifting it up with no help from the hands. Lifting and squeezing and compressing that right hip flexor. Really working that psoas muscle to lift that right knee. 1 more breath with that contraction. Then release that right foot back to the floor. Take a little paddle of those feet. Bring the arms up to shoulder height. Come back up onto those toes, pushing those heels forward. Holding it in standing for a breath. Remember, choice to fold over the legs and then bring the seat to the feet, or slowly bring those hips down, keeping those heels lifted, finding yourself in that crouch position, balancing on the toes. Then bring those knees down, bring those forearms down, train track position, step both feet back, find your forearm plank, just for a breath. Interlace the fingers, lift up the hips, walk the feet forward, find that regular dolphin pose, feet hip width apart, elbows shoulder width apart, pushing that chest back, creating some space and width across that collarbone, squeezing the heels as close towards the mat as you can. 1 more breath here. Then step yourself back into a plank. Release the hands, train track position. Hold it there for a breath. Then drop down the hips, untuck of the toes. Release the chest to the floor, keep the elbows cactus arms. Breathe in, lift up the head, the chin, the chest, the hands, the elbows, maybe the feet. Take it into that full back bend. Stretching that front chain, anterior chain of muscles, contracting the posterior chain at the back of the body. Working some strength, helping with that thoracic extension, helping with that lumbar lordosis, taking it into a back bend here. Then release the feet, release the hands, release the chest, release the chin. Bring those elbows back under the shoulders by lifting up through the chest. See if you can just take them under by using those back muscles to lift. Find that train track position with the hands. Tuck under the toes, squeeze the bum, squeeze the thighs, lift the hips back. Forearm plank, align those feet to where they need to be. Interlace the fingers, push into the forearms, lift up the hips, walk the feet forward. Find that dolphin. On your out breath, bring the knees to a hover. In breath, lift and squeeze the heels back. 3 more, bring the knees to a hover, out breath. Lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. 2 more. And 1 more. And when you next come back up, heels squeeze back. Bring the knees to the floor, keep the toes tucked under. Walk the hands back towards the knees. You can push up with the hands or swing the arms. Find the balancing point on the toes, heels lifted. Hold it here for a breath. And either roll up through that spine with straight legs or push into those feet, bringing that body back up, engaging through those upper thighs to lift up into that toe position. Release down with those heels, bring the hands to the hips. Take your weight into your right foot. As you bend up with the left knee, turn the knee out. Find a place for that foot, either into the shin or into that inner thigh on that right leg. Find somewhere to focus on. Then bring the hands behind the back. Take an interlace of the fingers, push the hands down to the floor, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Hold it here. Keep focused. That left knee in external rotation. Your left hip in external rotation. The ankle of that right foot doing the work to hold the pose, but also doing the work in the core center to find that equilibrium. So you don't go too far over one side or the other. It's always working different muscles to find that balance. Maybe you need to close the eyes and open. Do that maybe a few times. Challenge that balance a little more. I find it really challenging to close my eyes and keep the balance, but it's nice to play around with. It's nice to work those muscles in the corset as it finds a wobble and we try and find that equilibrium back. Release the hands then back to the hips. Bring your left knee around up to hip height, toes back to the shins. Then squeeze that left hip flexor, lifting that left knee up a little higher, using the strength of that hip flexor to lift that knee. Hold it here for another couple of breaths. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Try and keep tall through the crown, tall through the spine. 1 more breath. Then release that left foot back to the floor. Take a little paddle of the feet. You may start to notice a little bit of pinching in the lower part of the foot. Around the toe area, you're working those feet hard and those ankles hard. Bring the arms back up to shoulder height. Take a lift up onto the toes. Push the heels forward as much as you can. Find that balance. And then take your way down, seat to feet, keeping the shoulders stacked over those hips as much as possible. When the seat comes down to the feet, hold it in that space for a breath. Keep pushing those heels forward. Then bring the knees to the floor. Bring the arms to the floor, train track position. Step both feet back into a plank, pushing the heels back, crown forward. Alignment from the whole of the body, from the top of the head back to the heels. Interlace the fingers, push into the forearms and lift up the hips. Step the feet slightly forward and encourage those heels back or paddle, holding it in a regular dolphin pose for a couple of breaths. And you're noticing we've not done anything on our wrists. We'll be doing nothing on our wrists throughout the whole of the practice, full wrist free. Step both feet back into plank. Release the arms out to train tracks. Hold it in this space. Then let the hips drop to the floor, untuck of the toes. Release the chest down towards the mat. Arms Interlaced at the bum, push the hands down towards the feet, squeeze the shoulder blades together, push the hips into the mat as you then raise the chin, the chest, the hands away from the bum if you wish, the feet away from the floor. Again, taking that strengthening back bend, lifting those long limbs of the legs, lifting that upper torso, resting on that space between the upper thighs, the lower ribs. Hold it in this space. One more breath here. Then release those feet, release the hands, the chest and the chin. Release hands from an interlace. Try and lift up that upper body as you place those elbows back under those shoulders. So you're really working those back muscles when you're trying to bring those hands back into those train track arms. So then tuck under the toes, squeeze the bum, the thighs, lift up that body in the centre to that nice long line of plank, forearm plank. Push into the forearms, chest cavity to the space between the shoulder blades. Take an interlace of the fingers, lift up the bum, start to walk the feet a little further in. Finding regular dolphin for a breath. So choice here can either to do the knee drops that we did earlier, or if you're coming to me, we're going to do a forearm push-up. So coming forward to plank and over with the chin to touch the floor in front of the hands. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. And again, bringing that chin over those hands, touching from front and pushing the heels back. 2 more of these, coming forward, dipping into that dolphin and lift. 1 more, forward, dip, push into the forearms, lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. Coming down onto the knees, keeping the toes tucked under, walk those hands back. Find that balance onto those toe tips, heels pushing forward, arms in line with the shoulders. Or roll up now to standing, or push into those toes, lifting up into a standing position. Once you've arrived in standing, hold it there for a couple of breaths with the heels lifted. And then release the heels down, step your right foot forward, come onto the toes of the back foot and bend into that right knee. Reach up with the arms, find high lunge. Hold it in this space for a couple of breaths. Sink those hips a little lower. Then bring your right hand forward, left hand back, drop the left heel, find warrior 2. Right knee turns out, lower belly lifting, head stacked on top of that spine. From this place, right forearm, right thigh, and reach over with the left hand, finding the stretch of that left hand towards me at the front of the mat. Left outside edge of the foot pushing into the floor. Try not to let all your weight come onto that right forearm. Use those oblique muscles to hold the pose. 1 more breath in this space. And then bring those shoulders back over those hips and straighten your right leg. Reach forward and down with the right hand as your left hand lifts. You maybe gaze up to that left thumb. Chest and hips open to the left side of the room. Both legs straight. Try not to hyperextend with that right leg. Give a little bit of muscle engagement in that upper right thigh to protect that joint. Bring those shoulders back over the hips. Bring your left arm down and around and just find high lunge for a breath. Bring the hands to the hips. Step back with your right foot into that standing position. Bring the arms up to shoulder height. You have to really lever yourself back to find this standing position. Then come on to the toes, lift up the heels, holding it in that space. Then slowly let those hips come down to meet those feet. Nice and controlled. Once you get to the floor, hold it there for a breath. Keep pushing those heels forward. Bring the hands down by the side of the body. Let the knees drop. Bring the arms forward, step both feet back, forearm plank, strong in the centre of the body, crown forward, heels back, nice long line. Bring those hands together, interlace, find dolphin plank, walking the feet forward, staying in that regular dolphin for a couple of breaths. Heels squeezing back, get into those calves and Achilles on the back of those legs. Create that space across the collarbones. Try not to hug the shoulders up to the ears. Keep pushing those forearms into the mat. Step both feet back into your forearm plank. Release the hands. Find those train track arms. Just for a breath. Then release the hips down, untuck the toes, lift up through the chest. Then release the chest down. Bring the hands behind, take an interlace of the fingers. Push the hands down to the feet, squeeze the shoulder blades together, palms together. Lift the chin, lift the chest, lift the arms, lift the feet. Strengthening back bend. Using the muscles from those shoulder blades, from those neck muscles down towards the bum, and then from the bum to those heels of the feet. Release the feet, release the chest, release the chin. So lifting up through the chest without any external help to bring those forearms back, shoulders stacking over the elbows. Then tuck the toes under, engage the thighs, the glutes to lift the hips. Find that forearm plank for a breath. Bring the hands together, interlace, push into the forearms and lift up the hips. Walk the feet a little further forward, just hold it in dolphin for a couple of breaths. Then we're going to take again those push-up dolphins on your, or you can take the dips with the knees. Come forward, let the nose touch the floor, push back, lift the hips. 3 more, forward, nose touches, push into the forearms, lift the hips back. 2 more. Remember those knee dips can be the option here if this is too strong. 1 more. And lift. Bring the knees down. Keep the toes tucked. Walk the hands back. Remember you can push through the hands or swing the arms to find those toe positions. Either hands can come to the floor and you can roll up through the spine, or you push into those feet. Use the thigh muscles to lift. Keep those heels away. Find that balance. Release the heels down. Step your left foot forward, toes of the back foot, bend into that left knee and raise those arms up to the ceiling. Find high lunge for a couple of breaths. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. Then drop your right heel, bring your left hand forward, right hand back. Find warrior 2. Hips sink down, left knee turns out, get that stretch on the inner thigh of that left side. Crown of the head stacked on top of that tailbone. Everything taken out, the pressure of that lower back by lifting the lower belly up. Left forearm, left thigh, right arm reaches up, over, stretching through those fingertips of that right hand. Trying not to collapse into that left side. Keeping that left knee bent, right leg straight. Try not to weight too much into that forearm. Keep the strength of the obliques, keeping the hold of the pose. Then bring those shoulders back over those hips, straighten the left leg. Try not to hyperextend and microbend. Let that left hand come down to the inside of the left shin. Right hand lifts, right shoulder stacks on top of the left. Left bum cheek tucks under, right hip turns out. Create that width from the right fingertips to the ceiling, from the left fingertips to the floor, like someone's pulling you to the top and bottom of the room. Then bring those shoulders back over those hips. Turn back onto the toes of the back foot, raise the hands. Find high lunge for a breath. Then bring the hands back to the hips. Push out of that left foot to bring yourself back to that standing position. Arms come up to shoulder height. Come up onto the toes. Push those heels forward. Keep that core engagement. As you then start to lower with the bum down to the heels, trying to keep those shoulders in line with the hips as you bring those bums low. Hold it there in that space. Then release the knees, release the forearms, train track position. Stepping both feet back, find your plank, nice long line from the crown to the heels. Holding it in this space for a breath. Then take an interlace of the fingers, push into those forearms, lift up the hips. Walk the feet forward, squeeze the heels back, chest back, width through the collarbones. Step both feet back. Find that full forearm plank. Release the hands. Let the hips come down to the floor, under the toes. Find that Sphinx position. Then bring that chest down to the floor. Take a bend into both knees, bringing the feet towards the bum. Bring your hands around to take a hold of the ankles or tops of the feet. Try and keep the knees towards each other. As you lift up through the chin, lift up through the chest. Push into those feet, lift up through the thighs. Take it into reverse bow. We should be settling on that pubic bone and those lower ribs, so the belly's compressed, so you're having to breathe a little higher into the upper rib cage or the lower rib cage. Holding it here, taking that back bend, pushing the feet into the hands, resisting with the hands. One more breath here. Then release those knees down, release the feet down. Bring the hands down by the sides of the head. Turn onto the right cheek, bring your left knee out to the side, left foot grounded. Then squeeze the outside of that left hip to push that left hip into the mat. Squeezing through that glute on that left side. Just neutralising the spine from the back bends. One more breath in this direction. And then we'll take that left leg back out long. Turn onto the left cheek. Bring your right knee out to the side. Push that right hip into the mat, squeezing that right bum cheek to push it down. Getting that stretch on the inner groin. Then turn back onto the forehead, bring your right foot back to meet the left. Engage that upper muscles of the back to lift the chest, bring the elbows back under the shoulders, train track arms. Tuck the toes under, engage the thighs, the glutes, lift up the hips. Hold it in forearm plank. Then lift the hips, push the chest back, walk the feet slightly forward. Maybe interlace the fingers, which I've just forgot to mention. So your weight comes into your left foot as you raise your right leg up. Bend your right knee, turn the hips to the right. Try and keep the shoulders nice and neutral, the weight into both forearms. The gaze back towards that left foot, that left heel squeezing towards the mat. One more breath in this space. Turn the hips back to neutral, right foot back to meet the left. Put your weight into your right foot, raise the left leg. Bend your left knee, step up with your hip. Turn the hips to the left, try not to let the weight go too much into the right forearm. Realign those hips, bring the left foot down to meet the right. Step both feet back. And find those train track arms. Holding it in forearm plank. Head stays in line without it dropping towards the floor. Just bring your right hand in underneath the body. Roll over onto your right side. Either stack the feet or left foot in front of the right. And raise the left hand to take it into side forearm plank. Keep pushing into that forearm. Keep the hips nice and lifted rather than sagging. Maybe gaze up to that left thumb. Twist and turn through that cervical spine, the upper part of the spine. One more breath. Bring that left forearm back down, toes of both feet. Find train track arms with both arms. Hold it there for a breath. Bring your left hand under the body, so it's at a 90-degree angle. Rock over onto your left side. Either stack the feet one on top of the other or right foot in front of the left. Keep the hips high. Right hand up to the ceiling, gazing up to that right thumb if you wish. Squeeze that bum. Try not to let the hips drop back or turn open. Keep everything stacked. Both heels stacked, both hips stacked, both shoulders stacked. Then bring yourself back to forearm plank, full plank. Hold it in that space. Interlace the fingers, lift up the hips, find dolphin. Walk the feet a little further forward. Squeeze the heels back. Then come down onto the knees. Keep the toes tucked as you walk the hands back towards the knees, the seat to the heels. So choice to keep the toes tucked if you wish here, bringing the hands onto those thighs. Or if you wish to untuck the toes, bring those feet to plantar flexion, top of the feet flat. Close the eyes. We're going to take another round of box breathing here. We'll take 2 rounds of 4, 4, 4, 4, and then we'll take 2 rounds of 5, 4, 5, 4. Take a breath in first. Long sigh out through the mouth. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In for 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Take a long breath in. Long breath out. Stacking those hips over the knees, shoulders over the hips. Widen the knees to hip width apart. Feet stay flat. Bring the arms across the body. We're taking a couple of Nordic reverses. So hips push forward, glutes squeeze, engage the upper thighs. On your out breath, bring that body to come back to a hover. On your in breath, raise back up, shoulders stack. Out breath, come back, engage those thighs. Try not to let the bum sink. Breath in and lift. Come back, shoulders stack. 2 more times, release back. And lift. 1 more time, release back. And lift. Bring the hands behind the back, little fingers come together. Push the hips forward, tuck the tailbone down, lift the lower belly up. Raise up through the ribs, up through the chest, up through the gaze. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Breathing into this extension of the spine. Then lift up through the shoulders, stack them back over the hips and the knees. Bring the seat to the feet, bring the hands to the heels, foreheads to the mat. Push into the shins as you lift the hips, holding on to the heels. Traction those shoulders. Keep pushing into those shins as much as you can. A little feather-like touch through the top of the head. The weight is being suspended by holding onto those heels more. One more breath here. Then bring those seats back towards the feet, shoulders over the hips. Come up onto the knees. Just take a little twist of the body, swinging the arms from side to side. And we'll take those few movements again, taking into those Nordic reverse. Arms come across the shoulders, tuck the tailbone under, lift the lower belly up, squeeze the glutes. As you breathe out, take it back to a hover. As you breathe in, lift back up, shoulders over the hips. 4 more times. Release back. And lift back up. 3 more. Release back. Try not to dump into that lower back. Keep everything engaged in the centre. And lift. 2 more. Lean back. And lift. 1 more, lean back. And lift. Bring the hands to the lower back. Squeeze the bum, push the hips forward, lift the lower belly up, raise up through the ribs, the chest, the gaze, take it into your varied of back bend. We're just going to hold it here for a few breaths. We can take other options. You can tuck the toes under. Maybe bring your left hand to the left heel, right hand to the right heel. Still pushing those hips forward, taking it into a deeper back bend, a chest expansion, feeling that stretch along those pectoral muscles of the chest. The gaze is up to the ceiling, using the muscles in the neck to hold the weight of the head. Or just keep it where you are with the hands at the lower back. 1 more breath here. Bring the hands back to the lower spine, and everybody lift the shoulders back over the hips. If you've tucked the toes under, untuck the toes, bring the seat to the feet, forehead to the mat, hands to the heels, hold on to the heels. As you push into the shins, lift up the hips, traction the shoulders by holding those heels tight. Feather-light touch through the top of the head, keep pushing down into the tops of the feet and the shins. Then release those bums back to the heels, shoulders come over the hips. Bring yourself back up onto your knees. Just give those arms a swing, a little rotation of the waist. Neutralise that spine. Bring them back to stillness. Make your way onto a seat, bringing your feet around to the front. Heels to the front, toes back to the shins. Release flesh from under the sit bones. Take 1 forward fold, breath in. Raise the hands, breath out, fold over those legs. Bring the hands to wherever they reach, shins, ankles outside of the feet. Breath in, elongate, roll the shoulders back, breath out, fold over those legs, let go of the head, relax the neck. Engage those upper thighs to push those knees down. Engage the abdominals to maybe draw that torso a little closer to those thighs. Start to curl up through that spine, 1 vertebra at a time. All the way back up to a full seated position, arms to shoulder height. Release slowly back, using the long limbs, the core strength, to take each vertebra down to the mat, 1 at a time. As you bring those shoulders down with control, the neck, the head. Bring the arms out to a cactus arms, palms facing up. Take a bend into the knees. Bring your right knee over your left. And then let the knees drop over to the left side, the gaze to the right. So we have more of a stress rotation, but just if it feels tight on the lower back, unhook that right leg and just stack it on top of the left. But if you feel this is good and it gives you a little more stretch, stay with it. Just let gravity take a hold of those legs as you let them drop to the left. Maybe gaze towards that right elbow, chest facing up, shoulders plugged into the floor. 1 more breath here. Bring those knees back into centre, swap the legs. Left knee over the right. Gaze to the left, let the knees drop over to the right side. Again, if it's too much, just unhook the leg and just let that left leg sit over the right. Keep pushing that left shoulder down. Gravity takes a hold of the legs. Try not to resist with muscle activation. Let go of everything. Just let those knees hang. But if it's pinching the lower back, either come out of the pose or relax it out a little more by unfolding that left leg. One more breath here. Then bringing those knees back to centre. Unfold the legs. Bring the knees into the chest. Holding on to those knees with both hands or wrapping the arms around. Squeezing them in towards you. Then bring the elbows to the inside of the knees. Take a hold of the shins, the ankles outside of the feet or big toes. Let the soles of the feet point up, the heels stack over the knees. Shoulders pushing into the floor. Try and keep that lower back pushing into the mat rather than keeping that bum too lifted. Keep squeezing it down to the floor. The thighs to the outside of both rib cages, the knees into the armpits. Really bending through those legs as much as you can. Maybe having a rock from side to side, just massaging that spine, thanking it for practice. Using that muscle engagement to stop you rocking too far over to one side or the other. And bring yourself into a still position. Bring the elbows to the outside of the knees, still keeping hold of where you're grabbing, either the shins, ankles, or outside of the feet. And then straighten through the legs, take a hamstring stretch down the back. Try and bring that tailbone to the floor as much as you can as you straighten those legs out, pushing the heels away. Keep breathing here. And then taking a bend into the knees, bring the feet to the floor. Either let the knees drop out to the sides in butterfly legs, or bring the knees back into the middle and heel toe the feet out to the edges to internal rotation. This is really good for lower backs if they're pinching. Or find your traditional relaxation pose in Shavasana. Wherever you are, make sure the lower back feels comfortable. You find that space at the back of the head. You encourage those shoulders down towards the hips, turn the palms up, let the fingers gently relax and curl. If the legs are long, let the feet drop out to the sides. If the knees are bent, dropping in, just let them relax against each other. If the knees are dropping out, let gravity take a hold. Close the eyes, let the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth. The lips gently part. Relax the forehead, the jaw. Take a nice long deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Bring the awareness to the lower back, the base of the spine, visualizing the colour red. Bring the awareness now to that space between the pubic bone and the belly button. Being aware of the colour orange. That space from the belly button to the lower ribs. Being aware of the colour yellow. That space of the chest and the heart. Visualizing the colour green. The throat, seeing the colour blue. That space in between the eyebrows, that third eye, seeing the colour purple. And the space at the top of the head, either seeing white, gold or pink. Let the awareness travel from the top of the head all the way through the spine and back to that lower part of the back of the tailbone. Bring the awareness to the lower part of the back, thinking of support, grounding and stability. The space between the pubic bone and the lower ribs. Being aware of fluidity and creativity. That space between the belly button and the ribs, the fire of the belly, strength and stamina. The space around the chest and the heart, compassion, empathy and love. The area of the throat, communication, verbalization, and our social capacity. The area around the eyebrows and that space between our wisdom, discernment, our intuition. The top of the head. All you need is space and bliss. Bring your awareness now to the fingers and the toes. If you wish to stay in this relaxation for longer, pause me now. If you're coming with me, take a wriggle of those extremities. Maybe take a rotation of the joints of the ankles and the wrists. Maybe bring that movement up into the knees and the elbows. Maybe into the shoulders and the hips. Maybe reaching up with the fingertips, taking them above the head, pointing through the toes, reaching through the fingers, maybe arching into that lower back, creating that arch in that spine. And then bringing one knee at a time and the hands back up and over, bringing the knees into the chest, maybe having a little rock of that body from side to side, massaging that spine again, thanking it once again for practice. Then choice to either roll over onto one side, taking a couple of deep breaths here, or rocking up and down the spine a couple of times if you're feeling a little more energetic. Massaging up and down those vertebrae. And then bringing yourself into a seated position from wherever you are, finding that comfy seat, that favoured place. Once you've found that place, grow tall through the spine, relax through the shoulders, close the eyes still. Keep internally with the thoughts. Take a breath in, bring the hands up and over the head and bring the palms together at the top. Bring the hands to the chest. Bring a soft gaze to the floor. Breathe in wisdom and peace. Breathe out love and joy. Namaste.